everyone, and welcome to Data Literacy in the Real World. My name is Dr. Paul Barth, and I am the Global Head of Data Literacy for Qlik. And I'm really pleased to have this panelist of data literacy practitioners with us today. These are people who have been actively rolling out data literacy programs in their companies, and they're here to share some of their experiences and best practices with you. The panelists today come from a variety of backgrounds and industries. Angelica Klitis is a manager of education for Two Focus, a consulting company that helps companies get proficient in data literacy. In addition, she's a lecturer at a university in the Netherlands that she can describe. Amelia Shorey has been running a data literacy program since last year at her company, Arizona Public Services, where they're rolling out literacy as part of a digital transformation. Beatrice Blex is the data architect and associate manager driving data literacy at Lockheed Martin, which has been a customer of Qlik's for over a year regarding data literacy. And again, I'm Paul Barth, and I'm going to moderate this discussion. And we're going to focus this as a discussion and a round-robin interaction with our various panelists and specialists, touching on some of the aspects of their programs. How did they get started? Who participated? Who sponsored? What were the benefits that they expected, and what have they realized to date? And so to get started, I'd like to ask Beatrice about her experience on data literacy and who sponsored and decided to launch it in the very beginning.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Paul. So here at Lockheed Martin, we had a digital transformation effort that kicked off really in 2019, and there were a large number of teams that were spun up to support that and really change the way that we work and transform it, so to speak. One of the teams that was stood up as part of that effort was completely focused on data. And it was identified fairly early on that focusing on data didn't just mean focusing on the tools and the services that had to do with data around the enterprise, but also some of the cultural changes and cultural initiatives that needed to happen to really enable data usage as part of our cultural DNA. And so that team, that big organization that was stood up to focus on data, later became our Chief Data and Analytics Office. And so our primary sponsor is our Vice President, our Chief Data and Analytics Officer. And so we've been lucky and privileged to have the organization identify this as a critical need and continue to make investments in that organization to support that need.
Great. Amelia, can you tell us a little bit about Arizona Public Service and why they felt the need to invest in data literacy?
Yeah, sure. So Arizona Public Service, or APS, is the largest utility in Arizona. We serve about 1.3 million customers through the state of Arizona. We've also pledged 100% carbon-free electricity to our customers by 2050, so we are undergoing huge cultural transformation as a company to help us get there as well. And digital transformation using data as an asset will be one of the key driving forces, which is kind of the mission of the group that I'm part of, to enable data-driven decision-making within the company. And data literacy happens to be one of the cultural transformation or one of the people aspects of the transformation. So our group is driving data literacy within the program. We, of course, have backing from our C-suite towards this transformation as well. And objective has always been for us to making sure we get the right data in front of the right people to make the right decisions.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Angelica, I know you've been working both in education as well as with companies in this area. And can you tell us what you see as many of the reasons that companies start a program on training in data literacy?
Well, from my perspective, it never can be enough to start programs in data literacy. I think the things that I hear from a business perspective is that companies fail in getting successful with data and analytics, and that is caused by the human factor of using data and analytics. And so if I go to companies from my commercial perspective to focus, I always try to address the importance of data literacy and how tremendously important it is to be able to learn to read data and insights created from data. And on the other side, as a teacher, from the beginning on, I will tell my students, you have those organizational goals, you have to learn the skill set, and you have to implement your projects and help people to understand what they see, what they are looking at. Because if they don't understand it, they won't use it.
That's great. And Anuya, I think one of the questions that people have is the specifics around the skills that you were trying to make sure people mastered. You know, we use the definition of read, work with, analyze, and argue with data that has been developed from some academic institutions and others. But specifically at APS, did you have goals and skills for certain kinds of users, and were your users more on the expert end or on the novice end of working with data and analytics?
Yeah, so the way we are looking at this is one of our tools in the toolkit, if you will. So we are looking at data literacy as a foundational training and education program for all of our workforce. We are also working on other advanced analytic solutions, and we are thinking of this like a pyramid. So most of the people would go through data literacy program, and then out of that, fewer people will go through more technical training programs targeted at the APS data sets. And even fewer of them would maybe try to become like a citizen data scientist kind of a thing. So we are looking at this from a holistic perspective, trying to develop training and education program for all of our workforce.
Great. You know, and B, as you were starting to roll out this program, I wondered if you had a vision of the scale and duration that it might take to be able to engage those first students and get them to take the time to engage in curriculum and learning and classwork in addition to the full-time jobs they had. So how did you get them motivated to start, and where did you think it would go, and how would it grow?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Very similar to Anuya, we're thinking on this as a spectrum, right? So this is the first step, the first tool in our toolkit. So I always knew, and we always knew at Lockheed, that we wanted to reach out to all 114,000 employees, but that's a really, really big task to start with, to say like, yes, let's do all of them at once. What we ended up doing is we have some fantastic organizational partners who work with us as our stakeholder group to really ensure that all of the content and all of what we're putting in front of end users resonate, not just for me sitting at the enterprise level, but also for our folks who are distributed into the different areas of our business. And so our initial kind of launch of this has been with those groups, as well as our HR organization, who is an extraordinary partner and very bought in to this concept and this idea. So we started with the folks who were highly motivated, highly interested in serving as representatives for their area, as well as organizations that we already knew were strong partners and could give us strong feedback, and maybe already had varying levels of data literacy within that organization. From there, we're really excited to partner even more deeply with some of our functional areas like supply chain and engineering as we move into the future and really look at this tactically and operationally as we continue to grow up to that 114,000 number that we're looking for.
Great, and I think that's a really important concept. And what I found interesting is the breadth of people and jobs that you want to incorporate. You're talking about engineers and others who are very comfortable with math and often have some analytical skills. And then you may be talking about business users and frontline users who don't have that explicit training. And, in our curriculum, we've really focused on this idea of personas, from the absolute novice through to a data guru, as we call them. At Lockheed, what do you see as the predominance of people you're trying to reach with data literacy in terms of persona?
Yeah, in terms of persona, I would say a lot of who we're directly trying to reach at this point are our data beginners and our data curious folks. So folks who are starting to see changes in their jobs or the work that they do, not so much at a level where they're going to be something else. They might still have that role, but the way that they actually perform that role is going to change. HR is a really good example in that case. So in the past, you might have had an HR group who did all the data stuff, and people would be like, yeah, I'm going to call the data people. They're going to do that for me. With data democratization and the rise of kind of self-service analytics, it's going to be less and less likely that all of those data calls are going to be outsourced to another group, and your HR business partner is going to have to do that themselves and be able to derive insights from that. So these are folks who maybe they don't want to be data analysts or scientists when they grow up, and they don't have to be, but they are going to need to attain different skills, newer skills, to continue to keep up with the changes in how to perform their role.
Great. And Angelica, I'm interested in your thoughts on the kind of content that Qlik is providing. As you know, we have deliberately decided to make our data literacy training general and open to any analyst using any product. So there's no specific tool training there. However, I do think that there's an interesting, to transition from learning the concepts to applying them, you do need to apply them through some of the tools that you may have, whether they're the Qlik Sense tool set or whether it's Excel or other kinds of analytical tools. And I was curious, with your experience, what is that perfect blend of learning the concepts as you do in our data literacy program and then being able to apply them?
Well, of course, from a professional point of view, I need to be agnostic. But of course, my blood is a little bit green. So I start off in my classes and even in my Get the Lights On sessions, the data literacy basic training that I give all around the world is more agnostic. So we don't talk about tools. We just talk about the human impact and the human behavior, what is necessary, and the organizational behavior. And from there on, we started to build a strategy map, KPIs, other indicators or measures. And from there, you have to write a plan how to build something. Like I also teach my students, you have to think of your goals, and then you can check the data. And from there, you can do other things with it. But more for that later. And from there, we started with the tools. And in this case, in my classes, we use the Qlik academic program because it's first of all e-learnings that the students can take and learn to use the tool. And on the other side, I can teach them all things about data literacy and how to use the proper and the correct visualizations. So that's a combined effort, actually.
Great. And I think that, Anulia, one of the other things we've talked about is the need to build out a data culture. So if this data literacy concept is new to your firm, some of the ways that people interact and communicate are going to evolve and change, and you're going to need to open up to more and inclusive discussions of business issues that incorporate data and analytics terminology and concepts. And one of the things we felt would help with that process was our educational methodology of having a class of learners go through the program at the same time. And I think that they start with, they start learning the topics, they share their stories at the end of it through a capstone project, a 10-minute presentation of a challenge or a problem, and they start seeing each other as analytical and as data people. And a couple of yours have even evolved to becoming not just mentors, but instructors as you take the program in-house to scale it. And I was curious about how you think that experience of the capstone, the interaction, the going through the class together and developing mentors and instructors is reflected in how that's helping you progress towards establishing a data culture.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because I think the main aim here is to influence the culture through the organization to be more data-driven. So we had a lot of emphasis on how we can make sure that sticks. People remember that even after they took the training. The first pilot we did late last year, we got an overwhelming feedback from respondents that they would like to have something that would help them apply the skills that they are learning through the data literacy program. So we introduced this capstone project concept, which essentially led them through the whole data-informed decision-making framework. We were giving them bite-sized worksheets each couple of weeks for them to think about what problem they are trying to solve, what kind of data sets would help them achieve the goals that they are trying to achieve. And at the end of it, maybe present a story about what the data is telling them regarding the problem that they were trying to solve to begin with. So that has been hugely successful. We've got some interesting presentations at the end of our programs. We are also encouraging them not to think just about their work, but also maybe take up projects that are not work-related to make it more fun. We had a presenter, the last cohort, who had a problem that she was trying to solve, which looked something like, how can I look at historical trends to predict what will be the outcome for the March Madness? So that turned out fun for the audience as well. Some of the key aha moments out of those have also been how important it is to ask the right questions, because at the end of the day, if you don't ask the right question, no amount of data will get you what you wanted to begin, you started out with. At the end of it, what we are also doing is the alumni from all of these courses, we have started a data analytics curriculum. We have like a community forum that all of these alumni and other practitioners of data within the organization, they participate, they talk about all kinds of challenges that they are facing in their day-to-day which relates to data. So they have monthly meetings. We also introduce challenges for them. So we introduce this capstone kind of a format, like a datathon for them every month, where we give them a question and they go and solve it. And then we have prizes for who solved the best, who gave the best story, data visualization to help solve the problem.
Oh, that's terrific. I really appreciate that learning and that insight. And I am interested also because we offer and recommend a hybrid curriculum. And as you were thinking about it, by hybrid, I mean it's online learning on your own, but according to a schedule, and then live interactive sessions, which could be office hours for discussion or presentation by an expert or instructor to everyone. And the idea is to reinforce that personal journey on data literacy with a group of people, again, to try and start building out this discussion and this communication. And I'm wondering what your experience with hybrid online, offline learning path has been.
We also followed, we also followed a hybrid learning plan, and I think one of our biggest lessons, so a lot of people found a ton of value in the office hours, being able to ask questions, being able to explore items that they learned in their learning a little deeper with an expert or with other people in their cohort who maybe had the same question or had a different take on the same learning. We also got feedback that a lot of folks were really interested in seeing it more targeted towards their job, their person, their role. So what we've done in a lot of the other cases is we've worked to tailor those office hours and tailor some of those cohorts to be focused on a particular role or organization. So for example, for HR, We will have an HR cohort, which is still a mixed group of people. There's a lot of different folks who work in HR, talent acquisition, your business partners, talent management, and all across our business areas, because we really want folks to come share their experiences. But the office hour sessions are targeted towards what does data and using data to inform decisions look like for an HR professional? What are the different ways an HR professional does this? Because it's going to be different than how a financial analyst does this or how somebody in supply chain does this. And that has had kind of an overwhelming response. People are really starting to see the connections, learning new things about their organization and the people who support them that maybe they didn't even know before. I didn't know that we had a group that did this. And now that I do, I'm really excited to get involved and to learn about how I can do that.
Great.
Exactly.
And I just have a follow-up for you, B, on one item here before I go to Angelica, and that is around HR. You've mentioned them a couple times. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we know is that this activity of engaging and investing your time in data literacy is generally not compensated for. It's part of, it's outside your job. And so you're asking people to spend 1 or 2 hours a week to strengthen their professional development. And I wondered if you and HR have developed any incentives, recognition. It doesn't have to be monetary, but a way that people would volunteer and be eager to get into the program besides the kind of general interest in furthering my skills.
Yeah, I would say the first thing to start with, and for folks listening, they probably have heard this too, data is very trendy right now. We are the cool kid on the block, and we're definitely using that to our advantage when we're looking for folks to participate. And so I think we've had an overwhelming response of folks saying that I'm willing to do this because I'm interested in this, or I know that this is a big deal. I know this is a good thing. What we've done in the past for other cohorts is offered certificates that were signed by our chief data office. We've worked with managers to kind of identify, hey, I just wanted to let you know that your direct report is involved in this and they've been participating in this and really had some great insights there. I think any way that you can to encourage folks, even if it's non-monetary, even if it's just a note to somebody's leader to say, hey, guess what? They're doing this thing and it's really cool, is another way to kind of incentivize that effort. Because certainly, like a lot of organizations, it can be really challenging for folks to find the time to invest in themselves and invest in upskilling when we all have so many different priorities going on.
Great. And Angelica, I'm going to direct the last question to you. You have a unique perspective of being on two sides of the fence. I'd say on the academic side, you're working with students who are preparing to move their careers ahead and then get into the workforce. And then you work with companies who are struggling with making sure that analytics is part of everyone's job. And I was just curious how you felt about the importance, if I'm recruiting your best students from your classes, what key things should I be putting in place as a corporate manager or executive around data literacy to incent them to come?
Well, first of all, I am able to recognize the cherry picking, right? And sometimes you see those guys being so tremendously good in the things that they do. The biggest and the greatest example is that one of my students that I'm training, he's a trainee actually at 2Focus, and he is a student at the University of Leiden. And I brought him the whole process, how to approach a data project and how you can work with data, use the Qlik academic program for it. And he is one of the 3 finalists of the Datathon of Qlik.org to fight sustainability and the climate change. So amazing. And he will be presenting on the expo area where you can vote for him, of course. Vote for Jesse. But, yeah.
Well, thank you all. I want to thank my panelists today for being patient while we worked out our technical difficulties and then sharing their experience. And I welcome anyone in the audience to reach out to us and to connect to learn more. And one other thing I'd like to ask for is that you consider filling out the breakout session survey so we know whether this is meeting your needs, because really we're doing this to share best practices, and we as leaders in this space are trying to build a community of data literacy leaders and people who can push this program out at scale, because it certainly is making a big impact on our economy. So again, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.